I want to show you some examples of the weavings that I've made to give you some inspiration and give you a more visual sense of what we'll be doing together. So this is an example of one I made on a piece of tree bark that I found in my yard. And I love the patterns that the ash borer, the insects, made on the tree, which unfortunately killed it, but I love finding beauty in that destruction and that natural process, and then connecting the weaving and my energy to that. So I used for this one an indigo dyed organic linen thread. You can see the back there. And this is a larger piece of tree bark that I found, and I love the color and all the textures. So I used a Tibetan yak down yarn for this one, and it's really soft and fluffy. And it's kind of like a bridge there, so there's an opening. So I'll show you how you can do that. And then some much smaller pieces. So there's this paper wasp nest one that I love. I think this one's my favorite. It could go either direction. That way, I think I like it that way, at least in this moment. I used an indigo dyed linen thread. And this one is the most delicate one I've worked on. So I had to be really careful with it. I'll share in another video how I work with something delicate. So that is that one. And then this is a piece of birch bark that I found on the ground, and I used some linen thread for that one as well. You can see the back. And then I've used a lot of these natural raw stone tiles that somebody gave me, and I love the textures and the tones and the square, all of it really appeals to me. So this is an example of working on a weaving that's flat rather than like on the tree bark where there's a curve and we're creating more of a bridge across it. This example, it's more flush against the surface of the piece. And this is a indigo dyed nettle yarn. It's hand spun. I love that variety in the tones. It's so beautiful. It feels really good too. So I've made a lot of this style with different fibers. So this is another one. Look at the marks there. I think it looks like a reflection in a puddle or something. I just think it's so beautiful. And this is another nettle yarn that I used. It has a beautiful texture. These weavings are really nice when they're complete to touch, to be a touch point, or almost like a worry stone, but not about worry really, or maybe it's a calming presence or something. That tactile sense is really beautiful. And then this is an example of a looser one. So I found this piece of tree bark. I love all the lichen on it. And I took some, I think, I'm not sure what kind of thread this was, or yarn. Someone gave it to me. I used persimmon dyed Japanese sashiko thread for the warp, which is the one that goes around. And then for the weft, which is this one that goes up and down, that's a secondhand yarn. But can you see how open that weave is compared to like this one that's very tight and very close together? So I'll show you how you can play just with subtle changes like that to impact the look and feel, but also the experience of making the weaving. So these are all examples of the plain weave style, which is what we're going to be doing together. And the reason why I'm focusing on the plain weave is because it's so simple. I really love to focus on simplicity in my work and share that because it often can be challenging given how we have been wired and conditioned, many of us. So it's really healing and mindful and meditative practice, just focusing on simplicity and noticing what comes up if we want to make it more complicated, or if anything comes up in that process. So that's what I love about it. I also just think the simplicity is really beautiful. And I look to wabi-sabi, which we'll talk more about, but the ancient Japanese aesthetic philosophy rooted in Zen Buddhism. Simplicity is one of the key aspects of that, which really speaks to me because there's such a beauty and gentleness to simplicity, and I really love that. So that's what we're going to focus on. That being said, you are welcome to play with the process and adapt it however you want. You can make it whatever you want it to be. So those are just a few examples of the weavings I've made. And then now we'll dive into the process and how you can make some of your own weavings.